wasn't a fan of the first movie due to the story that they were trying to tell with characters that were unrecognizable. And this just repeats the same exact thing. Hey, what's going on, Nerd fam? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, we're going to talk about Wakanda Forever. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We're going to do a review. There are spoilers, so if you haven't watched it and you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this. But if you just want to move on ahead, please do. I'd appreciate it. And if you like the video and the rest of the stuff on the channel, please like and subscribe. I would really dig that. I would love that, actually, and appreciate it. So, let's get to it. Now, like I said right in the beginning, I wasn't a fan of the first film because, to me, they did a travesty to a lot of the characters, specifically the main one, making him kind of a shell of his former self. And a lot of the characters in this second film were like that as well. And they were pretty much unrecognizable, which wasn't a service to the overall story as well. The story becomes smaller. When the characters become a shell of themselves, the overall story also gets smaller. Now, just so you can understand where I'm coming from, yes, I do have a lean towards the source material, but it's not because I think everything in the source material is amazing when it comes to anything that's adapted. It's just that most of the time, if you've actually read it, because if you haven't read it, you won't know where I'm coming from, they do give way better explanations for persons or characters' motivations and things that can really last long in the universe versus a lot of the surface level motivations they give these characters in the adaptations. And I'll get into some of this stuff later on in the video. Now, were there positives that I had in this movie? Yes. And they were very few, but simple to understand. The design of the costumes, the same thing that was good in the first film. The design of Wakanda and even Talakan and their people, their design, their wardrobe looked awesome. As well as the acting. I think everybody in this film cared about the role that they were playing, at least, and everything that they were directed to do, they did to their best ability. I will not take that away from any one of them, right? Also, I did think it was respectful how they did things with Chadwick, especially because I know those people were alongside him, and that loss probably hit them rather heavy. Do I think that means that they shouldn't have recasted it? No, I think the character should still be alive. But they didn't choose that, so it is what it is, right? Now, going forward, it's going to make things very interesting, especially what they do with the mid-credit scene, which we will talk about in a little bit. But those are the positives. Design of the wardrobe, design of the actual worlds is by the, not the Atlanteans, because they're not that, Talakan and Wakanda, and the acting and the respect for the passing of Chadwick Boseman and how they even try to do it with the character. Would I have chosen some random sickness that they needed the herb, which he already had in him, so I don't understand why they would have needed to synthesize more. I know that it was destroyed by Killmonger, but I'm saying, didn't he already have it in his body? So what is this sickness that did that? And what would stop it from happening to Shuri now that she has it? I wish if they would have fleshed that out a bit more so we can understand exactly what happened to him, at least make something up. But whatever, I think they were just trying to mirror the real life sickness that Chadwick Boseman had just so it can hit Harding. And I saw those emotions, they were definitely coming from a real place when you saw them, the actors. And you know what? I give them credit for that. But there are a lot of things that these directors and the writers did to these characters and the overall story, which I thought was pretty trash. Let's talk about those. First things first. Vibranium and the world. So, in this, Wakanda is now dealing with the rest of the world, just like how T'Challa was already meaning to do that at the end of Black Panther. Got it. And now, people are like, you gotta share Vibranium with us and all those type of things. And you would think that this is the first time they're hearing about Vibranium, right? And obviously, the only people who are dangerous, the only people who are dangerous to get Vibranium happen to be people of a certain pigmentation, which, I'm not saying that couldn't be a thing because it's just another country, but I would think that the people surrounding Wakanda would be more dangerous because they're right there. And they would try to figure out, hey, we were colonized and you say you have a problem with colonization, but you sat there and just let it happen to us. So we want those resources for ourselves. I could see that happening much faster than France going to do it. But hey, that's just my opinion, right? And also based off of what I know in the source material of how Wakanda really is. They're extremely xenophobic. They don't like anyone on the outside. So they're not like these super benevolent people who just care about everyone. That was really only something that was held by T'Chaka and T'Challa. Mostly everyone else didn't have that view. But whatever. Sticking to what's happening in this and the universe. First off, the world knew about Vibranium already. Howard Stark already knew about it. And guess whose shield was made out of Vibranium? Right? So it's very strange that they almost forgot about that. There's also a scene at the end of the first Black Panther where they're like, what does your country have to offer us? As if they think Wakanda is some backwater country. And some people might go, yeah, well, they didn't see it. Did we forget that in Civil War, that T'Challa was seen with this high-tech Black Panther costume running around, chasing after the Winter Soldier? They know that there's something else going on. You see what he's rolling around with. You see the bodyguards he's rolling around. You saw what he was doing, jumping around, fighting. We know there's something else with him. And T'Chaka was already talking to the world. Remember, he was there. That's how he got hurt in that explosion. So this isn't the first time that they're dealing with Wakanda as they would have you think here. It's like they forgot that T'Chaka was already doing this, that Wakanda was already involving itself in affairs that were outside of itself, which is good. I like that because that lended itself to the source material, that T'Chaka was out there trying to extend his hand. It wasn't just Nakia, it wasn't just this. He was already doing that. And in the comic, he was a person who was really, it was really the grandfather who started getting there, but T'Chaka was when I started really implementing the travels and making it part of like their pilgrimage to like learn about people outside of the country. That's what he was doing. And obviously T'Challa followed in his father's footsteps in that, and he even took it a step further, which we'll talk about in a different video. But this whole thing about Vibranium being like this brand new thing, no, because even Killmonger's father was like selling, like, I believe he was selling Vibranium to Claw to get weapons, which was the reason why Black Panther's father, T'Chaka, was even there for him in the first place. So yeah, this whole thing like Vibranium wasn't already seen, and like the people are just now trying to figure it out, that's just false. And also Riri Williams' involvement in making this Vibranium detector in a college campus, who knows, right? But that was just meant to shoehorn her and make her important in the story, even though it didn't really make any sense, right? It did not make any sense. Instead of them already having Vibranium and them probably knowing where to get more of it. And I think that's why it was also a travesty to have Claw die, because if anyone would have been able to help these people out with that, it would have probably been him. But whatever, he's gone. So we have to just deal with what we got here. The next thing that seems to be a giant issue for me, because I might go back to the Vibranium thing, because I feel like I'm forgetting a couple things there, is this. We have Shuri. I get that she's dealing with what's going on with her brother, but in the comic, she was extremely fierce and intelligent. I don't buy her as a warrior. I don't buy her even in the Black Panther suit. It's not convincing. I don't know if they should have made her beef up a little bit. Her and Riri were very, very similar. And it needed to be different. And like they needed to be very, 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 very different, but they were way more similar. And this person was not ready to take on that mantle. And the whole thing about her having rage and her seeing Killmonger, like, why would she? I didn't understand that, because I guess in this thing they're trying to make it seem like everybody who their ancestral thing is going to be different based off of how they're feeling, versus, it's just you seeing former Panthers. Because that's what happened when T'Challa took it. And he definitely wasn't in a good state of mind when he died. He was angry too. Remember, he was angry at his father for doing what it wasn't. And his father wasn't the only Panther there. There was a whole bunch of them sitting in the tree. But whatever. I guess that's just, me paying attention to what they've been telling me rather than forgetting like they want me to when they introduce something that contradicts it. Whatever, right? Now, for me, the biggest problem in this film is Namor or Namor, right? Whatever they want you to call him. If you haven't read the comic, let me give you a brief rundown. He's Atlantean. He's not from Talokan. He is not Mesoamerican. His dad is Scottish. His mom is Atlantean. She was blue. They got married on a boat. They came up there and allegedly killed his father because they didn't want his mom up there marrying some surface dweller. And she had a baby who, was white-skinned, who didn't do well down there because they were like, look, he don't look like us. We're going to have a problem. But Namor was extremely powerful, a good warrior, and an excellent ruler. And they couldn't deny that from him. And plus, he's, the son of royalty. So it puts him in line in the throne. But he always felt like he didn't belong down there. And he didn't like how surface dwellers were because he was about 100 years old, not a couple of 100 years old. So he wasn't there for colonialism, but he was there for World War II, which is where he met Captain America. And guess who else he met in the comics? He met the grandfather of T'Challa, who was a Black Panther as well, but very different, very brutal, was even putting heads on spikes of all the European invaders that were coming there. He even fought Captain America at that time, which obviously we can't get just because Steve Rogers is no longer there. And in this thing, he didn't know about Wakanda yet either. Or maybe he did. We could say that maybe he did know that. But Namor could have been used rather than being a mouthpiece, to insert some form of oppression, because that's really what it was. Let's just be honest. It was to talk about colonialism and to use that. That's why I hate surface dwellers, because you colonized my mother's ancestral home. And now I'm looking towards the other isolated people to help me in my cause. It was hilarious because Namor, right, goes and Google Maps Wakanda and just gets there. Even though he's been alive for a couple 100 years, for some reason, he had heard about some place and just gets there now. And I guess people are going, well, they just revealed themselves, so maybe that's why he just found it. They didn't reveal their location. They just started talking to the rest of the world. Remember, they're invisible to the rest of the world. But he just swam, figured it out, like he could have done hundreds of years ago, but didn't. This is why when I reference the source material, it makes way more sense that he would have encountered them much earlier on in his life. And I thought it would have been a really good opportunity to flesh out Wakanda by talking about the past Black Panthers, even see what the growth and how they think is, because he also in the comic didn't like that they started talking to other people, because he was like, you should be isolated like me. Like, fuck the rest of these people. Like, you could be like my surface counterpart. But as we know, in the comics, that's not what happened. T'Chaka became more open to communication, and T'Challa, like I said earlier, took it a step further. I thought this would have been cool if maybe in this movie, Shuri is trying to honor her brother's wishes by keep going and helping people out and using this technology to better people's lives like her brother wanted. And Namor is like, well, not Namor, let's just call him his real name. Namor is over there like, look, listen, you about to give people weapons that, like, people who I don't fuck with, you're about to go give them Vibranium, and I can't allow that. Your grandfather wouldn't have wanted that. And they're like, how the hell you know my grandfather? Mind you, we can say the Wakandans knew who Atlanteans were, because think about it, they could have a ton of knowledge that people don't know that they have. They have more technology, they're super educated. Why wouldn't they know who Atlanteans were? So we can say that since they've existed for thousands of years, the rest of the world thinks that they were a myth. But because of the experience that the grandfather had, they know that they were actual people, right? Maybe they've had like some trade going on that the rest of the world didn't know. But Namor is like, look, let's just say that something that's kind of I would say is a diversion from the book. Let's just say the trident that he has, maybe the grandfather made one out of Vibranium for him, like just to like encase it to make it even stronger. And he goes like, look, I was close with him. He gave me this. He wouldn't want what you're doing right now. And to have him think that he knows better than what they do. And that's what causes the war. Hey, if you start giving Vibranium to people who I consider my enemies, you're now my enemy. And that starts the conflict. I think that would be much better than the low-hanging fruit, which is, hey man, like, you got this Vibranium. I need that girl back. I need that girl that created it. I'm gonna kill her to make sure she doesn't make any more. But it doesn't matter because America already has the design for this, so killing hers is not gonna help. They already know how to make these things. So even without her in the film, the problem isn't solved by killing her. And then now you want to come and destroy Wakanda because you're like, you're gonna don't reveal anything about Talokan. Don't tell anybody we exist. But then you jump on a bridge where people are driving by and you're fighting, where anyone can see you. What? Like, make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense, right? So Namor in this film, or Namor, is a huge problem because what they just the mouth he was a mouthpiece for what they thought people wanted to see. Some guy who was fighting for, like, Mesoamerican against colonization, and that's why he's here. Even his whole birth of, like, the origin of Talokan is so similar to Wakanda. It wasn't even creative. Them just being a whole different offshoot as Atlantean would be cool. They've been living alongside people for thousands of years and have kept themselves hidden. It would make better sense, and it would flesh them out, and it would make the world even bigger versus just these people who were pretty much just spawned out of the same way that Wakandans were. They got exposed to something that the meteorite hit there too, and then for some reason they just have to go into the water. They can't breathe anymore. Like, they took it and just said, we gotta go in the water, we can't breathe. And they don't really explain as to why he's not blue. Why does he have wings? They don't explain that part because he's technically not half human, half anything. Like, both of his parents were from the same place, and she took that same seaweed-looking thing. Whatever. It wasn't a good explanation. It would have been just good if his mom was literally from another place and his dad wasn't. And then that half DNA is what creates a different result. It's a much better explanation. And I can go on and on about this whole Namor thing, hold on. And I was trying to figure out why they chose it. Why they changed it. And someone kept saying it was because they don't have the rights to the character. That's why they did it. So first it was, it's due to representation. Then it was like, no, it's because of distribution rights. And I'm like, hold on, that doesn't make any sense. Because that means Namor is just like the Hulk now, right? Where you can't have a solo film, but you can still tell the story from the comic. It just can't be in its own film. So what was the purpose of changing this again? To this weird surface level, low-hanging fruit version of a character that doesn't actually exist versus being able to have Atlanteans and an anti-hero? We don't want him to be like Aquaman. He came first. And their personalities aren't the same. Like, Aquaman is a hero. He's in the Justice League. Namor, he's an asshole because of all the things he's going through. I mean, this is the guy who goes to Reed Richards and Sue Storm, goes like, why are you with him? Like, this dude is, he does some crazy things. He's not like a good guy. And you can show that in this, that he's willing to do whatever. And you can even have a scene where, let's just say, the people who are challenging him for the throne are like, all right, so you gonna let Wakanda do that? And he has to constantly prove himself in front of these people who are always trying to kind of disapprove of him based off of who he is or what he is, right? Why not do that? Whatever. That's just me. That's just me. I will say the last thing, the reveal that T'Challa has a son with Nakia, who's like 5 or 6 years old, is weird because wasn't he gone for like 5 years? Didn't the blip make them gone for 5 years? So when did he have this time to have this child? And then the child seemed like he was somewhat familiar. He prepared us for his death. When? This child is really young. Like, really, really young. The time frame doesn't make any sense. And I guess they just put this scene in there for the people who really want T'Challa to exist. So I guess at some point there's going to be a time jump, or maybe there'll be a future version of him that comes and is Black Panther. Whatever. Just recast T'Challa. Bring him back. And honestly, you should probably recast Captain America and Iron Man as well. Because those are characters. You made T'Challa a household name. You made Steve Rogers that. You made, so did Tony Stark. And those guys are desperately needed in this. No Riri Williams and her. How, without a Stark suit, how is she doing this arc reactors? How is she, because if you know the story, she reverse engineers one of his suits. Is that something that she had here, or is she just manifesting, whatever? A lot of this was just very, very strange to me. I know I'm leaving some stuff out. I must be. But that's all I'm going to say right now. I've made the video long enough. Let me know what you think about it. And to the nerd.